Hi, boys and girls. Mrs. Hales here with your next art lesson. Today we're going to learn about lines. I'm going to read a book to you called Lines That Wiggle, and then I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine named Larry, and he's going to teach us all about lines. Lines That Wiggle by Candace Whitman. Illustrations by Steve Wilson. Lines that wiggle, lines that bend. Wavy lines from end to end. Lines that tickle. Lines that sprout. Bugs have lines that stick right out. Lines to trap. Lines to hide. Two lines running side by side. Lines that curve and lines that curl. Underwater lines that swirl. Lines that crisscross and lines that mend. Lines with doggies at the end. Lines that scurry, lines in threes. Lines in leaves that grow on trees. Lines that twist, lines that sway. Lines that swish the flies away. Zigzag lines light up the sky. Rainbow lines are way up high. Lines are everywhere you look, so find some lines not in this book. The end. All right, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed that book. It has so many different kinds of lines in it. Now we're going to make our own lines. So do what I do with your hands, but before we get started, we want to make sure we have enough room. So hold your elbows straight out next to you and put your hands up like this. And make sure you have enough room that you're not going to bump into the person next to you. All right, and then you want to put your left arm out in front of you like this, and you want to put your right arm up like this. Now this is an angle. I just made an angle with my arms. Now this, my right hand, that's going to be my talking hand, okay? So you want to get your right hand ready to talk. All right, so I'm going to say a sentence or a line, and then you're going to repeat after me. It goes like this. Let's practice. I'm going to say, Larry the line. And now it's your turn to say, Larry the line. Okay, ready? Larry the line is a friend of mine. He can make 3 straight lines for me. Vertical, diagonal, horizontal. Any curve he can learn with a twist and a turn. When he's out of his tangle, he makes a great angle. Any line he can make. After all, he's a snake. That was so great, boys and girls. Let's do it again. All right, I'm gonna get my left arm up, and I'm gonna get my right arm here. I'm gonna get Larry ready. Here we go. Larry the line is a friend of mine. He can make 3 straight lines for me. Vertical, diagonal, horizontal. Any curve he can learn with a twist and a turn. When he's out of his tangle, he makes a great angle. Any line he can make. After all, he's a snake. Very good, boys and girls. Lines are a really, really important part of art. In fact, I'm trying to think about what art looks like without line. And then you really just have color. And you really can't have art without at least line and or color. You really need one of those things most of the time to make art. So lines are a really important part of art. Now it's our turn to make our line paintings. You're going to have to use 3 different kinds of lines in your line painting. So be thinking about what kinds of lines you would like to use. I'm going to use a dotted line, a straight line, and a wavy line in my painting. I'm also going to use a continuous line, which is where I don't pick up my paintbrush, to make a shape, and that shape is going to be a circle. Supplies you're going to need are black paint, red, yellow, blue paint, a paintbrush, and a water cup. Remember when you're holding your paintbrush to hold the metal part with your pointer and your thumb, and then you bring your longest finger up underneath that on the back side for control and support. Now it's time to paint. You're going to hold your paper horizontal or hamburger style. Dip your paintbrush in your black paint. I'm going to paint a wavy line first. And then I'm going to paint a dashed line that goes over top my wavy line. Your lines can cross over each other. Now I'm going to paint a continuous line that's the shape of a circle. And I'm going to paint 3 straight lines next to each other. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. You can have 6, but you only have to have 3. Now I'm going to clean off my paintbrush. I tap, tap, tap it on the bottom of my water cup, and then I scrape my paintbrush, and then I dry it off with a paper towel or a sponge, whatever you have. I'm going to do this twice. Tap, 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 scrape, and then dry off my brush with a paper towel or sponge. Now I'm going to paint in between the spaces where my lines are with the colors that I have. Don't worry if your black paint hasn't completely dried. If it's really, really wet, you might want to let it dry a little bit. But if it's just a little bit wet, then it's okay to paint right in between those spaces. I'm not going to paint everything red. I'm just going to paint 2 of my areas or sections on my painting red. Then I'm going to clean off my brush again 2 times. Tap, tap, tap on the bottom of my cup. Scrape my brush on the edge and use a paper towel to dab off the water. Now I'm going to paint 2 of my sections in my painting yellow. A little bit of the black paint from my dotted lines was wet, and so it got into the yellow. I'm okay with that. I'm totally fine with that. That doesn't bother me at all. It didn't ruin my painting. Now I'm going to try blue. I'm going to clean off my brush first. Tap, 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 scrape, blot. Now it's time for the blue. I'm going to paint 2 of the sections in my painting blue. I'm using tempera paint. You can use any kind of paint that you have for this. You could use watercolor, you could use tempera, whatever kind of paint you have is fine. You could even use crayons, but if you use crayons, you might want to work in a smaller piece of paper. Now, I'm going to mix 2 colors for my last section because I've already used red, blue, and yellow. So I want to mix a tiny bit of red into a little bit more yellow. So I'm gonna mix just one little brush full of red into my puddle of yellow that's about the size of a quarter. And I'm gonna stir that up pretty good. And it's okay if I don't get it completely mixed on my palette because you can mix paint right on your paper and that's fine too. So now I'm gonna paint this last section around my red circle. I'm gonna paint that orange. If you run out of paint, you can always dip your brush in the water cup and that will kind of stretch or make last the paint that you have left in your brush. So that's a good trick. If you didn't mix enough orange paint and you just need a little bit more, just dip the end of your brush in your water and that'll kind of stretch out your paint a little bit. So I'm trying to mix my orange before my paint dries. And there you go, I'm finished. I love my painting. It's cheerful and happy. There's not too much going on, but I have lots of lines. I hope you have fun making your line paintings. Whatever your painting looks like is totally great. However it comes out is awesome. Boys and girls, I will see you next time.